So, by way of introduction, John Santoro was born in Joliet, Illinois, and raised outside of Chicago. John earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts from Northern Illinois University in 1986 and his Master of Fine Arts from the University of Chicago in 1988, and he also from which he also received a graduate fellowship. John is also a three-time recipient of the Community Arts Assistance Program grant from the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and has been a Fulbright mentor at the Institute of International Education. His works have been exhibited across the United States and can be found in many private collections. With that, I will turn it over to John to share with us the inspiration behind the new series of paintings we are featuring in Mud Time and the Sprites of Spring.
So Mud Time. Now, when I was last in San Francisco, it just happened to coincide with Joan Mitchell's retrospective at SF MoMA. And as I recall, you went in to see the show, and the first room had, say, 4 or 5 of her masterpieces from the 50s. 3 of them or so I had seen before in person. A couple, the others I had seen in reproduction, so it was great to see them all together, all sort of familiar. Then, as I recall, you walked in a little bit, and there was a wall, and you turned to the left, and then there it was. And it's a painting I had never seen before. I took it in, I was like, that is a really, really nice painting. And as I went up close and looked at it as close as you can get, the way I like to do, and sort of scour the painting over, I looked at the title information card, and I saw it was called Mud Time. And I almost laughed out loud, because I thought, that is awesome, it's so cool, I love it, I'm gonna steal it. So I did. I also saw the card reference that she got the title from a Robert Frost poem. And the Robert Frost poem is essentially about April. And when you live in a cold weather city like Chicago, spring is like the most awesome of the seasons because it's this nature's yearly renaissance. It's just like a rebirth of everything. So there's snow on the ground, mud everywhere, flowers are popping up, buds on the trees, and it's just such a feeling of optimism every year in the spring. So I just love spring. And had a sort of 2 sources of inspiration from the one painting, both cool title and a reference to spring. Now hadn't really thought of this, but I have a childhood memory of Robert Frost where my mother was a librarian, and I was probably 7th or 8th grade, and my mother forced my brother and I to do poetry hour. So this was an incredible sort of source of embarrassment once all my skateboarder friends found out about it. But the drill was, she would read us a poem, we discussed what it meant, and then the next week had to memorize a line from it. So the poem, the Robert Frost poem she picked was, stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, and the quote, these woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have many promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. So I had completely forgotten all about this. And so the Joan Mitchell painting, did a little deep dive into the Robert Frost poem, and then, okay, so I've got another cool childhood connection to Robert Frost. Now the Sprites, this comes from being a young artist, fresh out of graduate school, happened to see a Roy DeForest show, and there was probably 8 major paintings in the show. And one of them that really stuck with me was Muttley and the Wood Sprite. So if you know Roy's paintings, his dog Muttley is in just about all of his paintings. But the Wood Sprite was unique. And for some reason, I just identified with it. In the lower right-hand corner, this green-looking alien figure with crazy hair sticking up, and sort of friendly, but a little mischievous at the same time. I really identified with it. And again, that gets filed back into the deep memory. Haven't thought about it in 20 years or longer until I'm painting a beach scene, and I made a point of painting some beach grasses, not too dissimilar than this, sort of wispy, green, spiky grasses. And then, you know, a little move like this and like that, and boom, there's a face. And all of a sudden, the memory of the wood sprite just came rushing back. I thought, oh, this is cool, the wood sprite. So from then on, really all my beach grasses are sprites. And sort of like seeing faces in clouds or shapes in clouds. You know, there's sort of faces hidden in my paintings almost everywhere. So I don't push it as far as, say, Roy DeForest does, obviously, but if you see it, it's there. If you don't see it, it's not. So the Sprites of Spring, obviously a simple play on words with Igor Stravinsky. The Rite of Spring is ballet. Now, I'm no expert in ballet or classical music, but one, I like to play in words. It was so obvious to use it. And two, I have a childhood connection with Igor Stravinsky, where in the early 70s, I was probably 8, 9 years old, and Disney must have re-released Fantasia. So I saw Fantasia at this impressionable age, and you know, the alligators and capes were cool, hippopotamuses and tutus maybe not so cool. A lot of it went over my head. I recall being on the edge of my seat, anxious, so worried what was going to happen to Mickey Mouse when he created that incredible mess. So, spoiler alert, Sorcerer comes back and cleans it up for him. But then comes the dinosaur scene. Now, as a kid, and even to this day, I just have a love for dinosaurs. And back in those days, I mean, you just go to the library and had to get a book, and they were all very stiffly illustrated. What we didn't know about dinosaurs back then was a lot. One of my favorite books, though, at the back end credits, you know, this is a big book, had this little drawing of a Tyrannosaurus about to fight a Triceratops. And you really just had to use your imagination to imagine what that epic battle would have been like. But here in the Disney movie, in the case of Fantasia, it was an Allosaurus versus a Stegosaurus. Beautifully animated, if you've seen it, perfectly timed with the score, with Stravinsky's violent upheavals and weird time signatures and atonal tones. And anyway, it was the coolest thing I had ever seen. So later, I went and sort of did more of a deep dive back into it, bought the CD, listened to it a few times, and just sort of a childhood connection with Stravinsky work. So what does that all mean? How does that all relate to these paintings? I mean, I don't really know, but you know, you could ask why landscape, and it was probably 25 years ago now, maybe, just sitting in my backyard. It was probably April. Beautiful 70-degree weather, breezes, little April breeze. Flowers are bobbing around a little bit. And I just thought, this is so beautiful. It's so right here. I don't have to go to the Grand Canyon to be inspired by a landscape. And so I just take that simple, everyday view and then try to paint it in an extraordinary way.
What about the mixture of abstraction and kind of the landscape mix?
So the paintings start with a sort of yellowish, simple ground, and then I use a darker color, again, very washy, and sketch out the composition. Now, I've never had much luck using phone photos, even though I take a million of them, but I do lots of sketches. So I'll refer to the sketch and be like, oh yeah, that was a good one. Sort of sand dune on the right, thunderstorm on the left, and then do the drawing. And then the painting never quite comes out the way I envisioned, because I am sort of a throwback abstract expressionist where one move leads to the next, and you start building the painting, and it's a dichotomy between preconceived and letting the painting sort of form itself while I work. So I want that spontaneousness to come through with these, sort of a freshness, sort of an optimism, a playful funness, and I guess perhaps they're a little what's the word? I had a good word for it, now I'm forgetting what it was.
They've got drama in them, John.
What's that?
There's drama in there.
There's some drama in there. He was going to forget the word. Anyway, it'll come to me eventually.
Chaotic.
No. I have to check my notes, but I can't remember. So anyway, it'll come to me at some point. So the simpleness of a backyard or a peaceful beach scene compared to extreme weather, which is so powerful and awesome. We vacation occasionally in Michigan, where we ran out this funky farmhouse overlooking Lake Michigan. We're looking west, so amazing sunsets. But every now and then, like a couple of years ago, a major storm comes in. So you're on your phone, oh, it's going to rain here in 2 hours, and sure enough, you can see it. It's like this heavy metal intro, dun 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 dun. You can see this raging storm coming in. It's going to be here in an hour. Then all of a sudden, the breeze picks up and starts raining. You run inside and just ride it out for a couple hours. So that sort of power and awesomeness, I hope, sort of is conveyed as well.
I think so. I think that's pretty good. Do we have any questions for John?
I'm happy to answer any questions. So anyway, present Mud Time in the Sprites of Springs.
Are you still in Chicago?
Yes, I live in Chicago.
How long does it take your paintings to dry?
Well, there's a couple soft blobs if you sniff around for them. They take a couple months. I'm pretty much dry in a month, but the biggest blobs take about a month, another month. Yeah.
Are your preparatory sketches the composition, or do you do color studies as well?
No, just the composition. And I kind of think of it as it's like an armature that I hang the painting on or build the painting around, almost sculpting with paint in a way. But then again, it always sort of moves in different directions as I'm working. So it's sort of a point of departure, basically.
So the color comes from your memory of
Color comes from memory and just intuition. And I try to be a little bit logical with it. Like, don't have a lot of red in the water because it looked like a shark just ate something. Don't have green in the sky because that doesn't make any sense. But other than that, sort of, it's just all just based on intuition. Yeah.
Are you listening to the live string while you're painting?
I have not done that.
While you're painting, definitely see the flow.
Yeah, I think it's got a big upheaval move right there.
With all the timpanis and flowers.
Mm-hmm.
John, how is it to paint at a bigger scale? These are some of the bigger paintings I've seen from you in a while.
It was a little bit liberating, a little bit intimidating. You say, oh, 2 by 2, go up to 3 by 3, what's the big deal? But it's a huge difference. But it allowed me to open things up a little bit more, be less confined to little details, sort of make a move and let it be. Maybe keep them a little fresher. So again, I hope that's conveyed.
Yeah, I think absolutely that's true.
Oh, provocative.
There it is, folks. There it is.
Fun, happy, goofy, silly, a little bit provocative on the side. I knew it was a good word, but it took me.
Do we have any other questions for John? Or?
This piece feels a little bit different than the other ones to me.
That one is a little bit, obviously a little bit more abstract. And
It also just feels like a different place or a different emotion that you were in.
it's maybe, almost all of these are beach scenes. That one's a little more open-ended. I sort of I call this little mini-series of the Smalls April Snows or April Storms, just because it's such a great excuse to use white as it's snowing, and then colors of flowers are still popping up at the same time. But I admit that one is along with the other two up on the flat file, a little bit more abstract, perhaps.
And talk to me about Avalanche, which is the one that's kind of very much not a beach scene.
Yeah, Avalanche is there, and I did a whole show of extreme weather paintings, and I sort of love the crazy names, Polar Vortex or Thunder Snow, and these are like bad heavy metal band names. And that one, just avalanches are crazy powerful, right? And so I kind of wanted to do like a fun version of an avalanche where no one gets injured and sort of play up the possibilities of big chunks of snow rolling down a hill. That one just happened to be a little bit between shows, so it wasn't done when I did an extreme weather painting show, but finished it months later. And when Greg did a studio visit, just really liked the painting, so we decided to show it. Well, he decided to show it.
So, anyone else? Well, thank you, John. And I hope everyone enjoys the show.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming.